"Don't wait up," she said, wearing the perfume she only wore for special occasions. I didn't. Instead, I called the number I'd been saving for 3 months. The voice that answered belonged to his wife. But let me back up. My name is David Mercer, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a pretty decent life. 44 years old, senior account manager at Morrison Associates advertising firm, married to Dalia for 12 years. We lived in Westfield Heights, one of those suburbs where the lawns stay green and the secrets stay buried. Dalia worked as a business consultant, or so she told everyone at the country club. She had this LLC called Strategic Solutions that supposedly helped small businesses optimize their operations. Real corporate buzzword stuff that made people's eyes glaze over when she explained it at dinner parties. The perfume was Chanel No. 5. She'd worn it on our wedding night, on my birthday last year when we celebrated my promotion. Reserved for moments that mattered, she always said, so when she dabbed it behind her ears before heading to what she called a late client meeting, something twisted in my gut. Q3 projections wait for no one, she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. Henderson Industries needs their strategy report first thing Monday. It was Thursday, 9 p.m. on a Thursday. I watched her grab her keys, her leather portfolio, and that small purse she carried when she wanted to travel light. The garage door rumbled open, then closed. Her BMW's engine faded into the night. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and tried to focus on the baseball game. Cubs were down by 2 in the 7th. Perfect metaphor for my evening. That's when her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She'd forgotten it, which never happened. Dalia was surgically attached to that thing. The screen lit up with a text message. I shouldn't have looked. 12 years of marriage, and I'd never been the snooping type. But something about that perfume, about the way she'd avoided my eyes when she said goodbye, made me pick up the phone. Can't wait to see you tonight. Room 237 as usual. Tea. My bourbon suddenly tasted like ash. I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. Room 237 as usual, as usual. This wasn't some spontaneous thing. This was routine. The rational part of my brain started making excuses. Maybe it was a client. Maybe T stood for Thompson or Turner or some other perfectly innocent business contact. Maybe room 237 was a conference room at some hotel where they held late-night strategy sessions. But the perfume whispered otherwise. I went to our home office and opened Dalia's laptop. She'd never been paranoid about passwords. Used our anniversary date for everything. The browser history told a story I didn't want to read. Searches for discreet hotels downtown, how to start consulting business, LLC formation Illinois. Then I found her email. The Strategic Solutions account had exactly 4 clients over the past year. All men, all with corporate email addresses, all scheduling meetings at odd hours. My hands shook as I scrolled through the correspondence. Professional language, but something underneath it felt wrong, too familiar, too intimate for business relationships. One name kept appearing. Trent Ardell, Regional Sales VP at Henderson Industries. I grabbed my phone and did what any suspicious husband does in the digital age. I stalked him on LinkedIn. Trent Ardell, 46, graduated from Northwestern, lived in Oak Brook, married to Ellen Rydell Ardell, who listed herself as a forensic accountant. The pieces clicked together like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. I screenshotted everything. The texts, the emails, the browser history. Saved them to a cloud folder Dalia didn't know about. Then I found Elin Ardell's contact information through her accounting firm's website. It was past midnight when I finally went to bed. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening for the garage door. It never opened. Dalia came home at 6 a.m., slipping into bed like she'd been there all night. "How was Henderson Industries?" I asked when she got up to shower. "Exhausting," she said without missing a beat. "But we made real progress on their Q4 strategy. I wanted to scream. Instead, I made coffee and pretended to read the morning paper while she got ready for her regular day at the office. For 3 months, I watched and waited, documented everything. Thursday nights became her routine, the perfume, the late meetings, the early morning returns. I tracked the mileage on her car, found receipts for hotel parking in her coat pockets, noticed new lingerie purchases on our joint credit card. The Strategic Solutions LLC received payments every month, always from her Thursday night clients, always in round numbers that seemed too convenient for legitimate consulting work. I started having lunch with Greg Patterson, my buddy from college who worked downtown. He knew people, heard gossip. When I casually mentioned Trent Ardell's name, Greg's eyebrows went up. That guy? He's got a reputation. Thinks he's God's gift to corporate America. Word is, he's been playing around on his wife for years. What about his wife? Elin. She's sharp as a razor. Forensic accountant. The kind they bring in when companies cook their books. I'd hate to be on her bad side. That's when I knew what I had to do. Last Thursday, I didn't wait up. Instead, I called the number I'd been saving for 3 months. Ellen Ardell. You don't know me, I said, but we share a problem named Trent Ardell. Silence stretched between us like a held breath. Where should we meet? The Starbucks on 5th Street buzzed with morning commuters and laptop warriors. I'd chosen a corner table where we could talk without being overheard. My coffee had gone cold while I waited, checking my phone every 30 seconds like a nervous teenager. She walked in at exactly 9 a.m. I recognized her from her LinkedIn photo, but pictures didn't capture the controlled precision in the way she moved. Ellen Rydell Ardell wore a navy blazer over dark jeans, pearl earrings, and an expression that could cut glass. David Mercer? She extended a manicured hand. Thanks for coming. She ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and sat across from me with the bearing of someone who'd spent years dissecting other people's lies for a living. So, she said, folding her hands on the table, tell me about my husband. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots, the texts, the emails, the hotel receipts I'd found. She examined each image with clinical detachment, occasionally asking me to zoom in on dates or details. Room 237, she murmured. The Marriott downtown. He told me it was his lucky number. You knew? I suspected. Trent thinks he's clever, but he's actually quite predictable. She sipped her coffee. What I didn't know was the scope. She opened her own phone and showed me bank statements. Transfers to Strategic Solutions LLC dating back 18 months, $40,000 total. I manage our finances, she explained. When I asked about these payments, he said it was for business consulting, marketing strategy for his division. $40,000 for marketing advice. That's what I thought, so I did some digging. She pulled a folder from her purse. Your wife's LLC was incorporated 2 years ago. Sole proprietorship, minimal business activity until recently. Then suddenly she's getting regular payments from multiple sources. She spread out printed bank records like she was building a case in court. Trent isn't her only client. There's Robert Chen at Midwest Financial, James Morrison from your own company, and Dr. William Hayes from the medical center. My stomach dropped. Morrison? My boss? You didn't know? I thought about all the times Morrison had mentioned Dalia at office functions, how he always made a point to compliment her business acumen, how he'd started staying late on certain nights, claiming he was working on special projects. This is bigger than I thought, I said. Much bigger. Ellen's voice carried the satisfaction of someone who'd solved a complex equation. Your wife isn't just having an affair. She's running a sophisticated operation. We spent the next hour comparing notes. The patterns were clear once you knew what to look for. Monthly payments disguised as consulting fees, hotel meetings scheduled during business hours to avoid suspicion at home, even a shared calendar system that kept track of her appointments. The question is, Ellen said, what do we do about it? I'd been thinking about that for 3 months. We expose them. All of them. Every single one. She smiled for the first time since sitting down. It wasn't a pleasant expression. I've been married to Trent for 15 years, she said. Put him through business school, supported his career while he climbed the corporate ladder. Our kids are in college now. I was planning to file for divorce anyway. What stopped you? I wanted to make sure I got what I deserved. And now, thanks to your wife's meticulous record-keeping, I have everything I need. We exchanged contact information and agreed to meet again in 2 days. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time since finding that text message, I wasn't facing this alone. Dalia was in the kitchen when I got back, making her afternoon protein shake. She wore yoga pants and a tank top, hair pulled back in a ponytail. The picture of suburban wellness. How was lunch with Greg? She asked. Fine, same old stories. I grabbed a beer from the fridge. How's the Henderson project coming along? Really well. Trent thinks we'll have everything wrapped up by month's end. That's great. You've been putting in a lot of hours on that one. She turned to face me, protein shake in hand. It's a big account, David. This could really establish Strategic Solutions as a serious consulting firm. The casual way she lied impressed me. No hesitation, no tells. Just smooth deception delivered with complete conviction. I'm proud of you, I said. Building something from nothing takes real talent. Thank you. She kissed my cheek, and I caught a faint trace of that perfume. I should shower before dinner. I watched her walk upstairs, then pulled out my phone and texted Elin. We need to talk to the other wives. Her response came back immediately. Already working on it. The next evening, I met Elin at a wine bar in the next town over. She'd been busy. In 24 hours, she'd tracked down contact information for the other wives and made preliminary contact. Robert Chen's wife Lisa is interested, she reported. She suspected something for months but couldn't prove it. James Morrison's wife Jennifer is more complicated. Apparently she's been dealing with his wandering eye for years and just wants it to stop quietly. And Dr. Hayes? Divorced 6 months ago. His ex-wife Amanda is very interested in our conversation. We were building an army. There's something else, Ellen continued. I did some deeper digging into your wife's finances. The LLC is just the surface layer. She's got accounts I can't access, but the patterns suggest she's moving significant money. How significant? Based on what I can see, probably north of $200,000 over the past 18 months. I nearly choked on my wine. 200,000? Your wife is very good at what she does, David. This isn't some sloppy affair. It's a business. That night, I lay in bed next to Dalia and wondered who I'd really married. The woman beside me breathed softly, occasionally murmuring in her sleep. 12 years together, and I felt like I was looking at a stranger. My phone buzzed with a text from Elin. Meeting set for tomorrow. Lisa and Amanda are in. Jennifer wants to hear the plan first. I typed back, what's the plan? Complete exposure, public humiliation, financial consequences. We destroy their reputations and take back what they stole. All of it, every last piece. I set the phone aside and stared at the ceiling. In 48 hours, my life had shifted from quiet desperation to active warfare. Part of me felt guilty about what we were planning. The larger part felt hungry for justice. Dalia stirred beside me, reaching out in her sleep to touch my arm. Even unconscious, she was performing the role of loving wife. Tomorrow, the performance would end. The conference room at Ellen's accounting firm felt like a war room. 4 women sat around the polished table, each carrying her own folder of evidence, each wearing the controlled expression of someone who'd been pushed too far. Lisa Chen had arrived first, a petite woman in her 40s with steel in her voice. 23 years of marriage, she'd said by way of introduction. I deserve better than this. Amanda Hayes came straight from her law office, still wearing a courtroom suit. My divorce was finalized 6 months ago. William thought he was so clever, hiding assets through medical consulting fees. Turns out he was just funding his midlife crisis. Jennifer Morrison had been the hardest to convince. She sat at the far end of the table, nervous energy radiating from her like heat. I don't want this to get ugly, she said for the 3rd time. James and I have children to think about. So do we all, Ellen replied calmly. But your husband chose to make this ugly when he started paying for affairs with marital assets. I'd brought my laptop and a portable projector. The evidence filled 3 screens. Bank records, email chains, hotel receipts, and a timeline that showed the coordinated nature of Dalia's operation. She's been playing a long game, I explained. Each relationship follows the same pattern. Initial contact through professional networking, gradual escalation to personal meetings, then regular monthly payments disguised as consulting fees. Amanda leaned forward. The legal term for this is fraud. Potentially criminal fraud, depending on how the money was moved. What about the emotional damage? Lisa asked. Can we sue for that? We can try, but financial remedies are more concrete, Ellen said. I've run preliminary asset searches on all the men involved. Between them, we're looking at significant exposure. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. What exactly are you proposing? Coordinated divorce filings, Amanda said. All on the same day, all citing the same evidence, maximum media impact, maximum social embarrassment. And for your wife? Lisa asked me. Complete business destruction, I said. Strategic Solutions LLC gets exposed as a front for prostitution services. Her client base evaporates. Her reputation becomes toxic. That seems harsh, Jennifer said. Harsh? Lisa's voice rose. She took money from our marriages to fund her lifestyle. She enabled our husbands' betrayals and profited from our pain. Harsh doesn't begin to cover what she deserves. We spent 2 hours planning the logistics. Ellen had contacts at 3 different law firms, ensuring our divorce filings would be processed simultaneously. Amanda knew reporters who specialized in corporate scandal stories. Lisa had connections in the social circles where our husbands networked. Timing is everything, Ellen emphasized. We file on Thursday morning, leak to the press by noon, and let the story build over the weekend. By Monday, everyone involved will be radioactive. What about Dalia? I asked. Leave her to me, Amanda said with a predatory smile. I have some ideas about how to handle her business operations. We agreed to maintain radio silence until Thursday. No unusual behavior, no confrontations, no hints about what was coming. just 4 days of normal life before we dropped the hammer. I drove home feeling like I was carrying a live grenade. Dalia was in the kitchen making dinner, humming softly to herself. She looked up when I walked in, gave me that warm smile I'd fallen in love with 12 years ago. "How was your day?" she asked. "Productive. Closed the Peterson account." "That's wonderful. We should celebrate." She opened a bottle of wine, the good stuff we usually saved for anniversaries. We sat at our kitchen table talking about work, about weekend plans, about everything except the elephant in the room. "I might have to travel next week," she said casually. "New client in Chicago wants to meet in person." "Anyone I know?" "Probably not. Small manufacturing company, family owned. They need help streamlining their supply chain." Another lie, delivered with perfect conviction. I wondered if she'd always been this good at deception, or if it was a skill she'd developed over time. Thursday morning arrived gray and cold. I left for work early, telling Dalia I had a breakfast meeting with a potential client. Instead, I drove to Elaine's office where our legal team was waiting. At exactly 9 a.m., 4 divorce petitions were filed in Cook County Family Court. By 9:30, copies had been served at 4 different workplaces. By 10 a.m., the first reporters were making phone calls. My phone started buzzing at 10:15. James Morrison calling from his office. "David, we need to talk." "I don't think we do, Jim. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain everything." "No need. My lawyer will be in touch." I hung up and turned off my phone. The next call would be from Dalia, and I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. Instead, I drove to the Marriott downtown and asked to speak with the manager. Amanda had coached me on this part. "I'm investigating fraudulent business activities involving one of your regular guests," I said, showing him my divorce filing. "I need to know about charges to room 237 over the past 6 months." "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't release guest information without a court order." "That's fine. The reporters calling later today probably won't need the details anyway." His expression changed. "Reporters?" Channel 7 News is running a story tonight about a prostitution ring operating out of downtown hotels. Room 237 was mentioned specifically." That wasn't entirely true, but it got his attention. "Let me see what I can find," he said. 20 minutes later, I had copies of hotel bills showing regular Thursday night bookings, room service charges, and incidental fees, all charged to Trent Ardell's corporate credit card. My phone had 17 missed calls when I turned it back on. Dalia, Morrison, 3 unknown numbers, and 2 reporters who'd somehow gotten my contact information. I called Elin. "How are we doing?" "Better than expected. Trent's been suspended pending investigation. Robert Chen is in emergency meetings with his board of directors. Your boss is apparently having a nervous breakdown in his office." "And the press?" "Channel 7 wants an interview. The Tribune is running a story tomorrow. Someone leaked your wife's client list, and now they're trying to reach all her customers." "Who leaked it? Does it matter?" It didn't. The machine was in motion now, and there was no stopping it. I drove home to face whatever came next. Dalia's BMW was in the driveway when I got home, which meant she'd left work early. Not a good sign. I sat in my car for a moment, gathering courage for the confrontation I'd been avoiding for months. She was waiting in the living room, still wearing her business suit, but with her hair disheveled like she'd been running her hands through it. Her laptop was open on the coffee table, surrounded by scattered papers. "We need to talk," she said without looking up. "Yeah, I imagine we do." "The reporters who called today, what did you tell them?" "Nothing. I haven't spoken to any reporters." She finally met my eyes. "But you spoke to lawyers." "Yes." "And to Elin Ardell?" "Among others." She closed her laptop with deliberate care. "How long have you known?" 3 months. Since the first text message you left on the kitchen counter." 3 months. She repeated it like she was testing the words. "And you said nothing." "I was gathering evidence." "Evidence." A bitter laugh escaped her throat. "You make it sound like a crime." "Isn't it?" She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our perfectly manicured lawn. "You don't understand what you've done, David." "I understand perfectly. You've been running a prostitution business disguised as consulting, using our marriage as cover, and stealing from our joint accounts to fund it." "Stealing?" She spun around, anger flashing in her eyes. "I built strategic solutions from nothing. I created value, provided services, generated income. By having affairs with married men. By giving lonely, successful men exactly what they wanted. Companionship, attention, the feeling that someone understood their ambitions. Yes, it was intimate. Yes, they paid well for it. But I never lied about what I was offering. You lied to me. I protected you. Do you think you could have handled the truth? Your wife, the entrepreneur, building a business around emotional intelligence and physical attraction? I stared at her, genuinely shocked by her complete lack of remorse. You destroyed our marriage, Dalia. You made me complicit in fraud. You turned me into a fool. I made you rich. She gestured around our expensive living room. Where do you think the money for this house came from? The cars, the vacations, the country club membership? My legitimate consulting work paid maybe $20,000 a year. Strategic Solutions brought in 10 times that. With stolen money? With earned money. Money paid willingly by men who got exactly what they bargained for. My phone rang. Aylin's name on the screen. Don't answer it, Dalia said. I answered anyway. What's happening? Turn on Channel 7, now. I grabbed the remote and switched to the local news. A reporter stood outside the Marriott downtown, microphone in hand. Investigation into what sources describe as a high-end escort service targeting married executives in the Chicago area. The operation allegedly used a consulting company called Strategic Solutions as a front for arranging intimate encounters. Dalia sank onto the couch, her face pale. The reporter continued. Court documents filed today show that at least 4 prominent businessmen paid thousands of dollars to the company over an 18-month period. The owner, David Mercer, could not be reached for comment. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda Hayes. Check your email. Sent you something interesting. I opened my email app and found a forwarded message chain between Dalia and someone named Marcus Webb, discussing expansion opportunities and recruiting additional providers. There are others, I said, showing Dalia the screen. She didn't deny it. It was a business, David, a successful business. It was prostitution. It was companionship with benefits. These men weren't looking for street walkers. They wanted intelligent, attractive women who could hold conversations at business dinners and provide emotional intimacy their marriages lacked. And you provided that. I provided exactly what they needed. Discretion, sophistication, and yes, physical affection. They paid premium prices because I delivered premium services. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a news van parked across the street. Don't answer it, Dalia said again. This is just the beginning, I told her. Tomorrow the Tribune runs their story. By Monday, every client you ever had will be exposed. You can't let that happen. I can't stop it. She grabbed my arm. David, listen to me. We can fix this. I'll shut down Strategic Solutions, return the money, whatever you want. But if this story gets bigger, it destroys both of us. It's already destroyed us. No. Her grip tightened. We can survive this. Couples get through affairs all the time. We'll go to counseling, take a vacation, start over somewhere new. I pulled away from her. This wasn't an affair, Dalia. This was a business built on lies. Fine. It was a business I'm willing to give up for our marriage. Our marriage ended the first time you put on that perfume for another man. She flinched like I'd hit her. My phone rang again. This time it was Greg Patterson. Dave, what the hell is going on? Channel 7 just ran your wife's picture on the evening news. It's complicated, Greg. They're saying she ran some kind of escort service. Please tell me that's not true. I looked at Dalia, who was watching me with desperate eyes. I can't tell you that, Greg. Jesus Christ, Dave, I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. I hung up and turned back to Dalia. Pack a bag. You need to stay somewhere else tonight. This is my house too. Not anymore. The divorce filing includes a restraining order. You have 2 hours to collect your things. You can't throw me out of my own home. Watch me. The doorbell rang again. This time it was a process server with papers from Amanda Hayes' law firm. A cease and desist order demanding Dalia stop all business operations and preserve all records related to Strategic Solutions. Sign it, I said. She read through the document, her hands shaking. If I sign this, I admit guilt. If you don't sign it, Amanda files criminal charges tomorrow. Criminal charges? Fraud, tax evasion, operating an illegal business. Amanda thinks she can make prostitution charges stick too, depending on what's in your records. Dalia signed the papers with a trembling hand. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. Not my problem anymore. She went upstairs to pack, and I called Aylin. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than expected. You? Trent moved out this morning. Took a suitcase and his golf clubs. Left everything else. Any word from the other husbands? Robert Chen's wife says he's been locked in his study all day, making phone calls. James Morrison apparently cleaned out his office and left town. Running away? Looks like it. Jennifer's lawyer thinks he might be trying to hide assets before the divorce proceedings get serious. And Dr. Hayes? Already divorced, remember? but Amanda found out he's been bragging about his consulting arrangement to other doctors. She's building a case for professional misconduct. So we got them all? We got them all. After Dalia left with 2 suitcases and a look of pure hatred, I sat in my empty house and tried to process what had happened. In one day, I'd gone from betrayed husband to divorce plaintiff to news story subject. My phone kept ringing. Reporters, friends, coworkers, family members who'd seen the news. I turned it off and poured myself a drink. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More reporters, more lawyers, more public scrutiny. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was alone in my own house without having to pretend everything was fine. It felt like freedom. The weekend brought a media circus I hadn't expected. By Saturday morning, 3 news vans were parked on my street, and reporters were knocking on neighbors' doors asking about the escort scandal. I stayed inside with the curtains drawn, ignoring phone calls and letting my voicemail fill up. The Tribune article was worse than I'd imagined. They'd somehow gotten access to Strategic Solutions' client list and were naming names. Trent Ardell, Robert Chen, James Morrison, Dr. William Hayes, and 6 other men I didn't recognize. The headline read, "Suburban escort ring targeted wealthy executives." My phone buzzed with a text from Elin. "Check your email. Urgent." She'd forwarded a message from her lawyer. Trent was threatening to contest the divorce, claiming the evidence against him had been obtained illegally. He was also demanding half of Elin's forensic accounting practice, which she'd built independently during their marriage. "He's getting desperate," she wrote. "My lawyer says that's when men like Trent become dangerous." I was about to respond when I heard a car door slam outside. Through the front window, I saw Dalia getting out of a rental car. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a wrinkled sweater. She had a key, but I'd changed the locks yesterday. She rang the doorbell repeatedly, then started pounding on the door. "David, I know you're in there. We need to talk." I opened the door but kept the chain latch engaged. "What do you want, Dalia?" "I want to come home." "This isn't your home anymore. Please, just let me explain." "Explain what? How you built a prostitution business while I thought you were building a consulting practice. How you used our joint accounts to fund hotel rooms for your clients. How you lied to my face every single day for 18 months. I never meant for it to go this far." "How far did you mean for it to go?" She pressed her face against the narrow opening. "It started with Trent. Just Trent. He was lonely, his marriage was falling apart, and he needed someone to talk to. So you decided to provide companionship services. He offered to pay me, said it was worth money to have someone who understood business pressures, someone intelligent enough to discuss his work challenges. And then? Then he referred Robert Chen. Said Robert was going through similar problems and could use the same kind of support. Support. Emotional support, David. These men weren't looking for cheap thrills. They wanted sophisticated companionship. With benefits. Yes, with benefits. But that wasn't the primary service. I almost laughed. You're still trying to sell this as legitimate business. Because it was legitimate. I provided value, they paid fair market rates, everyone got what they wanted. Everyone except their wives. And me. I was going to tell you. When? When I figured out how. Or when you got caught. She was quiet for a moment. I never wanted to hurt you, David. But you did hurt me. Every Thursday night. Every lie about client meetings. Every time you wore that perfume for another man. The perfume was for confidence. It made me feel powerful. It made you feel like someone else. Maybe I needed to be someone else. Maybe being just David Mercer's wife wasn't enough anymore. That hit harder than I'd expected. So this is my fault? No, it's my fault. But you have to understand. I felt invisible in our marriage. You went to work, came home, watched television, went to bed. We never talked about dreams or ambitions or what we wanted from life. So you decided to become a prostitute. I decided to become an entrepreneur. Same thing, apparently. She stepped back from the door. I'm staying at the Hilton downtown, room 412. If you change your mind about talking, call me. I won't change my mind. The reporters are going to keep digging, David. They're going to find out about the other women, the expansion plans, everything. When that happens, this story gets much bigger. What other women? I wasn't the only provider. Strategic Solutions was growing. How many others? Does it matter? It matters to their husbands. She got back in her rental car without answering. I called Elin immediately. We have a problem. I saw her leave. What did she want? To come home. But that's not the problem. She says there were other women involved in Strategic Solutions. Other providers? That's what it sounds like. How many? She wouldn't say. Ellen was quiet for a moment. That changes everything. If this was a larger operation, the criminal exposure is much more serious. For her, or for us? Potentially both. If prosecutors decide to treat this as organized criminal activity, they might go after anyone who benefited financially. I benefited financially. Our joint accounts received deposits from Strategic Solutions. Exactly. I felt the walls closing in. What do? We get ahead of it. I'm calling Amanda Hayes. If there are criminal charges coming, we need to cooperate fully and establish that we were victims, not participants. And if Dalia decides to claim I knew about everything, then we prove you didn't. How? And with the evidence you've been collecting for 3 months. The shocked husband discovering his wife's betrayal plays much better than the complicit spouse profiting from criminal activity. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen trying to process this new reality. Bad enough that my wife had been running an escort service. Now I was potentially facing criminal charges as an accessory. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Mercer, this is Detective Sarah Rodriguez with the Cook County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to ask you some questions about Strategic Solutions, LLC. I think I need a lawyer. That's your right, sir. But I should mention that we're treating this as a financial crimes investigation at this point. Cooperation now could be beneficial later. What kind of questions? Questions about your knowledge of your wife's business activities, the source of funds deposited into your joint accounts, and your involvement in Strategic Solutions operations. I wasn't involved in my wife's business. That's what we'd like to establish, sir. Would you be willing to come in for a voluntary interview? With my lawyer present. Of course. We scheduled the interview for Monday morning. I spent the rest of the weekend researching criminal defense attorneys and trying to figure out how my life had become a legal thriller. Sunday evening, Dalia called. The police want to interview me tomorrow, she said. I know. They want to interview me too. What are you going to tell them? The truth. Which truth? That I discovered my wife was running an illegal business, that I had no knowledge of her activities, and that I filed for divorce as soon as I understood what was happening. That makes me look like the villain. You are the villain, Dalia. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife. David, please. If you cooperate with the police, they'll use your testimony to prosecute me. Good. I could go to prison? You should have thought about that before you started taking money for intimate companionship. Don't abandon me now. You abandoned our marriage 18 months ago. She was crying when she hung up. Monday morning, I sat in a sterile interview room with my lawyer, Detective Rodriguez, and a prosecutor named Michael Chen. They recorded everything and asked detailed questions about my knowledge of Dalia's activities, my involvement in Strategic Solutions, and my awareness of the deposits into our joint accounts. My client discovered his wife's infidelity 3 months ago, my lawyer explained. He immediately began documenting evidence for divorce proceedings. At no point was he aware that Strategic Solutions was anything other than a legitimate consulting business. The deposits into your joint account didn't raise questions? Detective Rodriguez asked. My wife told me she was having success with her consulting practice. I was proud of her entrepreneurial efforts. Even when the deposits were for round numbers, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Consulting projects often have fixed price contracts. Did you ever meet any of her clients? No. Did she ever discuss specific projects or deliverables? In general terms. She said she was helping small businesses optimize their operations. Did you benefit financially from Strategic Solutions income? Our household benefited from additional income, yes, but I had no knowledge that the income was generated illegally. The interview lasted 2 hours. Afterward, my lawyer seemed cautiously optimistic. They're clearly building a case against your wife, he said, but I don't think they see you as a target. Your cooperation today should help establish that you were an unknowing victim. What happens next? They'll probably arrest Dalia within the week. The grand jury will decide whether to indict on prostitution charges, tax evasion, or both. And the divorce? That proceeds separately, but if she's facing criminal charges, she'll have bigger problems than splitting marital assets. I drove home feeling like I'd survived the first round of a fight I never wanted to enter. The reporters were gone from my street, but I knew they'd be back when the criminal charges were filed. That evening, Aylin called with news. Trent hired a private investigator, she said. Apparently he's trying to prove that we conspired to frame him. Frame him for what? For having an affair he actually had, paying for services he actually received, and lying about expenses he actually charged to his corporate credit card. How do you frame someone for something they actually did? You don't, but desperate people make desperate arguments. Are you worried? Not about the facts, but I am worried about what desperate people might do when they're cornered. Meaning? Meaning Trent knows where I live, where I work, and where our kids go to school, men like him don't accept responsibility gracefully. Have you considered a restraining order? Already filed. But restraining orders are just pieces of paper. Maybe you should stay somewhere else for a while. I'm not running from my own life, David. Then be careful. You too. If Dalia gets arrested, she might decide to take you down with her. She can try. Don't underestimate what a cornered person will do. I hung up and double-checked my door locks. Outside, the suburban street looked peaceful and normal. Kids riding bicycles, neighbors walking dogs, the everyday rhythms of middle-class life. But underneath the surface, everything had changed. In 1 week, I'd gone from betrayed husband to potential criminal defendant to key witness in a prostitution investigation. And somewhere in a downtown hotel room, my wife was probably planning her next move. I poured myself a drink and tried to imagine what that move might be. The arrest happened on Wednesday morning. I was drinking coffee and reading emails when Detective Rodriguez called. "We took your wife into custody an hour ago," she said. "Thought you should know." "What are the charges?" "Prostitution, tax evasion, money laundering, and operating an illegal enterprise. The grand jury handed down indictments yesterday." "Money laundering?" "She was moving funds through multiple accounts to hide the source. That's a federal charge." I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that the investigation was moving forward, sadness that 12 years of marriage had led to this moment. What happens now? She'll be arraigned this afternoon, probably released on bail, but with conditions: no contact with clients, no access to business accounts, surrender of passport. And the other men? No criminal charges. We're treating them as victims of the prostitution enterprise. Victims, that was one way to look at it. The news broke an hour later. Channel 7 led with suburban escort ringleader arrested, complete with footage of Dalia being led into the courthouse in handcuffs. The reporter mentioned that she'd been released on $50,000 bail and was facing up to 15 years in federal prison. My phone started ringing immediately. Reporters, friends, family members who'd seen the news. I turned it off and tried to focus on work, but concentration was impossible. At lunch, I met Elin at our usual coffee shop. She looked exhausted. "Trent's been calling all morning," she said. "Apparently he thinks your wife's arrest means he's been vindicated somehow." "Vindicated how?" "He's claiming he was manipulated by a criminal enterprise, says he's the real victim here." "Is that going to work?" "Not in divorce court. The evidence of his willing participation is overwhelming. But it might work in the court of public opinion." "Maybe. But I don't care about public opinion. I care about getting what I'm owed and moving on with my life." "Any word from the other wives?" Lisa Chen is ecstatic. Robert's been suspended from his job pending an internal investigation. Jennifer Morrison is still trying to keep everything quiet, but that's impossible now. "And Amanda Hayes?" "She's representing 2 of the other women who were involved in strategic solutions. Turns out your wife recruited them from escort services in other cities." "How many others?" "At least 4 that we know about. This was a much bigger operation than any of us realized." I thought about Dalia sitting in a jail cell, probably calling lawyers and trying to figure out how to minimize her exposure. Part of me felt sorry for her. A larger part felt like justice was finally being served. "There's something else," Elin continued. "Trent's private investigator has been asking questions about our coffee meetings. He's trying to build a case that we conspired to destroy evidence or manipulate the investigation." "That's ridiculous." "Of course it's ridiculous, but it shows how desperate he's getting." "Desperate enough to be dangerous?" "I don't know, but I'm taking precautions." That evening, I was working in my home office when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a man in an expensive suit standing on my porch. Mid-40s, athletic build, the kind of aggressive confidence that came with money and power. Trent Ardell. I opened the door but kept the screen door locked. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't. You destroyed my marriage, my career, my reputation. The least you can do is explain why." "I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourself?" "By paying for consulting services?" "By having an affair and lying about it. Everyone has affairs. That doesn't mean they deserve to have their lives ruined. Tell that to your wife." He stepped closer to the screen door. "Elin put you up to this, didn't she? She's been planning this for months." "Elin found out the same time I did." "That's not what my investigator says." "Your investigator is wrong." "My investigator says you and Elin have been meeting for months. Says you coordinated this whole thing to maximize the damage." "We coordinated our response after we discovered what our spouses were doing. That's called cooperation, not conspiracy." "I could sue you for defamation." "With what money?" I heard you got fired." His face flushed red. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." He stood there for another moment, then walked back to his car. A black Mercedes with temporary plates. Probably a rental, since Elin had mentioned freezing their joint assets. I watched from behind the curtain as he opened the door, his movements tight and controlled, like someone holding themselves together through sheer force of will. The engine turned over smoothly, too smoothly, and for a second I wondered how many other things in his life still worked exactly as intended. The car pulled away without haste, disappearing down the street as if he hadn't just crossed an invisible line. I called her immediately. "He was just here," I said. "Trent? What did he want?" "To threaten me. He seems to think we conspired against him." Even saying it out loud felt surreal, like I'd wandered into someone else's story. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but you were right about desperate people being dangerous." My pulse hadn't quite settled, a faint tremor lingering in my hands. "I'm staying at my sister's house for the rest of the week, just until the divorce is finalized." "Good idea." "You should consider doing the same." "I'm not running from my own house." The words came out more stubborn than brave. "Then be careful." "I will." I believed it when I said it, or at least I wanted to, but I wasn't careful enough. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of breaking glass. Someone had thrown a brick through my living room window. Attached to the brick was a note. "Stop talking to reporters, or this gets worse." Cold air poured in through the shattered frame, carrying the smell of damp leaves and dust. The brick lay on the rug like a punctuation mark, heavy and deliberate. The note was written in block letters, pressed hard enough into the paper that the ink bled slightly. I called the police, who took a report and promised to increase patrols in my neighborhood. Then I called my lawyer, who advised me to document everything and consider a restraining order. By the time I hung up, the adrenaline had burned off, leaving a hollow ache behind my eyes. "Against who?" I asked. "I can't prove Trent threw the brick." "But you can establish a pattern of harassment and intimidation." That afternoon, I was leaving the grocery store when I noticed the same black Mercedes following me. It stayed 3 cars back, matching my speed, turning when I turned. When I pulled into a gas station, it drove past without stopping. My reflection in the windshield looked pale, drawn. Every mirror suddenly felt insufficient, every shadow suspect. I called Detective Rodriguez. "We can't arrest someone for driving on public roads," she said. "But if you feel threatened, you should file for a restraining order." "Based on what evidence?" "The threatening visit, the broken window, the following behavior. A judge might find that sufficient for a temporary order." "And if he violates it?" "Then we can arrest him. If I'm still alive to report it." The words slipped out before I could soften them. "Mr. Mercer, do you have somewhere else you can stay for a few days?" "Why should I have to leave my home because some guy can't accept responsibility for his own choices?" "Because sometimes discretion is the better part of valor." That evening, I packed a bag and drove to a hotel across town. It felt like surrender, but it also felt like survival. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and stale air, anonymous in the way only hotels can be. I locked the door twice before sitting on the edge of the bed, listening to the silence. From my hotel room, I called Elin. "I'm glad you left," she said. "Trent's been driving past my sister's house all day." "This is insane. This is what happens when entitled men face consequences for the first time in their lives. How long can this go on?" "Not much longer. My lawyer says the divorce will be final next week. Once that happens, Trent loses any claim to my assets and has no reason to keep fighting." "Unless he's not fighting for money." "What else would he be fighting for?" "Revenge." The words settled between us, heavy and unmistakable. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Detective Rodriguez. I called her back immediately. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw the number, dread arriving fully formed. "There's been an incident," she said. "Someone broke into your house last night." "What kind of incident?" "Extensive vandalism, broken furniture, spray paint on the walls, destroyed electronics. Whoever did this was very angry." "Any evidence of who it was?" "We're processing the scene now, but I think you should come down and take a look." I drove to my house with a sick feeling in my stomach. The front door was standing open, and police cars filled the driveway. Detective Rodriguez met me at the door. Her expression was careful, practiced, already bracing for my reaction. "I should warn you," she said. "It's pretty bad." She wasn't exaggerating. Every piece of furniture had been slashed or broken. Spray paint covered the walls with messages like liar and homewrecker. My television had been smashed, my computer destroyed, my clothes scattered and torn. "How did they get in?" I asked. "Back door. Looks like they used a crowbar." "Any fingerprints?" "We're checking, but whoever did this wore gloves." I walked through my destroyed home feeling like I was touring a war zone. 12 years of accumulated possessions reduced to garbage and debris. In the bedroom, someone had poured a bottle of Chanel No. 5 over the bed and written "Whore's Husband" on the mirror in lipstick. "We're treating this as a felony," Detective Rodriguez said. "Breaking and entering, vandalism, criminal intimidation." "Any suspects?" "We're looking at everyone with motive. Your wife, her clients, anyone who might blame you for the investigation. It was Trent Ardell." "Can you prove that?" "Who else would know about the perfume?" "Your wife could have told any number of people about your marital problems." I spent the rest of the day dealing with insurance adjusters and crime scene technicians. By evening, I was emotionally and physically exhausted. My phone rang as I was leaving the hotel restaurant after a solitary dinner. "David?" It was Dalia. "I heard about your house." "Our house?" "I'm sorry. I never wanted things to get this violent." "Violent? Someone destroyed everything we owned." "I know, and I think I know who did it." "Trent?" "Yes. He called me yesterday, asking questions about you and Aylin. He was furious, ranting about how you'd ruined his life." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want you to get hurt. You should have thought about that before you started this whole mess." "I know, and I'm sorry for all of it." "Sorry doesn't fix my house." "No, but maybe I can help catch whoever did this." "How?" "Trent doesn't know I've been arrested. If he contacts me again, I could record the conversation." "Why would you do that?" "Because despite everything that's happened between us, I don't want to see you hurt. And because cooperation with law enforcement might help your criminal case." "That too." "I'll talk to Detective Rodriguez." "David?" "What?" "I really am sorry. About the affairs, about the lies, about everything. I never meant for it to go this far." "But it did go this far." "Yes, it did." She hung up, and I sat in my hotel room staring at the wall. In 1 week, I'd gone from suburban husband to crime victim to potential bait in a police investigation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is just the beginning." I forwarded it to Detective Rodriguez and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I was alive and safe. For now, that was enough. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. I was checking out of the hotel Friday morning when Detective Rodriguez called. "We arrested Trent Ardell an hour ago," she said. "For vandalizing my house?" "For that, and for violating the restraining order Elin filed yesterday. He was caught on security cameras breaking into her office building." "Is she okay?" "She's fine, but he left some disturbing materials in her office. Photographs, personal items, threatening notes." "What kind of photographs?" "Pictures of her house, her car, her daily routine. He'd been stalking her for weeks." "And now?" "Now he's in jail without bail. The judge ruled that he's a danger to the community." I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "So it's over?" "This part is over. You can go home." Home was a destroyed house filled with broken memories, but it was still mine. I spent the weekend cleaning up the damage and trying to salvage what I could. Most of the furniture was beyond repair, but the structure was sound. With time and money, it could be restored. Sunday evening, Elin stopped by with coffee and sandwiches. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Better now that Trent's in custody. He's been charged with stalking, harassment, breaking and entering, and vandalism. His lawyer thinks he might plead guilty to avoid a trial." "What about your divorce?" "Finalized yesterday. I got the house, the business, and most of our assets. Trent gets to keep his legal bills and his criminal record." "And the other couples?" "Lisa Chen's divorce was finalized last week. Robert lost his job but avoided criminal charges. Jennifer Morrison is still trying to work things out with James, but I don't think that's going to end well." "What about Dr. Hayes?" "Already divorced, remember? But the medical board is reviewing his license. Apparently paying for prostitution services violates their ethics code." We sat in my damaged living room, surrounded by the debris of my former life, and talked about the future. "What will you do now?" she asked. "Rebuild? Fix the house? Focus on work? Try to move forward? Any regrets?" "About exposing them?" "No. About how it all played out?" "Some." "Such as?" "I wish I'd confronted Dalia directly instead of building a case against her. Maybe we could have worked things out." "Do you really believe that?" "No, but I wish I could believe it. She made her choices, David. You just responded to them." "I know, but 12 years of marriage deserved better than a police investigation and criminal charges. 12 years of marriage deserved better than prostitution and fraud." She was right, of course. But that didn't make the ending any less painful. Monday morning brought news that Dalia had accepted a plea bargain, 5 years probation, restitution to her victims, and permanent closure of Strategic Solutions, LLC. She'd avoided prison, but her reputation was destroyed and her business career was over. I felt relieved that she wouldn't be incarcerated, but also frustrated that the consequences seemed light compared to the damage she'd caused. My lawyer called that afternoon with an update on our divorce proceedings. The criminal case simplified everything, he said. She's agreed to a no-contest divorce with minimal asset claims. You keep the house, the retirement accounts, and most of the joint property. She gets her personal belongings and whatever legitimate business assets remain. What about alimony? Waived. Her criminal conviction eliminates any claim to spousal support. And it's final? 30 days from now, you'll be officially divorced. I hung up and looked around my damaged house. In 6 weeks, I'd gone from married man to single homeowner. The transition felt surreal. That evening, I was painting over the graffiti in my bedroom when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see Dalia standing on the porch, holding a small suitcase. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. I came to get the rest of my things, she said. Most of your clothes were destroyed in the break-in. I know. I just want my jewelry and some personal items. Fine, but make it quick. She walked through the house, surveying the damage with a stunned expression. I can't believe he did all this, she said. Desperate people do desperate things. I never wanted you to get hurt, David. But I did get hurt. We all did. She gathered her belongings in silence, occasionally pausing to look at a photograph or memento from our marriage. When she was finished, she stood in the doorway holding her suitcase. What will you do now? I asked. Start over somewhere else. Maybe go back to school, learn a legitimate trade. Good luck with that. David? What? For what it's worth, I did love you. I still love you. But not enough to be faithful. No, not enough for that. She walked to her rental car and drove away. I watched until her taillights disappeared, then closed the door on 12 years of marriage. 6 months later, my house was restored and my life had settled into new routines. I'd been promoted at work, started dating a woman from my gym, and learned to sleep through the night without checking door locks. Aylin and I still met for coffee occasionally, comparing notes on our post-divorce lives. She'd expanded her forensic accounting practice and was dating a retired police detective who appreciated her investigative skills. Trent Ardell was serving 18 months in county jail for stalking and harassment. His wife had moved to another state and changed her name. Dalia was living in Arizona, working as a retail manager and attending community college. She'd sent me a card on what would have been our 13th anniversary, apologizing again for everything that had happened. I threw the card away without reading it twice. The other couples had found their own endings, some divorced, some reconciled, all changed by the experience of discovering that their marriages weren't what they'd believed them to be. As for me, I learned that betrayal could be survived, that justice sometimes prevailed, and that starting over was possible at any age. The scent of Chanel No. 5 still made me nauseous, but that was a small price to pay for the truth. Some evenings, when I was working in my restored home office, I would remember that Thursday night when everything changed. The perfume, the text message, the phone call that started it all. I'd made the right choice. I knew that now, but I also knew that some choices, once made, changed everything forever. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone I'd never really known. The man I'd been was gone too, replaced by someone stronger but sadder. And somewhere in Arizona, Dalia was probably telling herself a story about how she'd been the real victim in all of this. Maybe she even believed it, but I knew the truth, and the truth was enough. The perfume was gone, but the ashes remained. And from those ashes, I was building something new.